Welcome back, innovators. Today, we're diving into the world of the most unusual weapons ever created. I'm talking about the kind of stuff that sounds like it came straight out of a James Bond villain's secret lair. From exploding rats to sound weapons that could make your brain feel like scrambled eggs. These inventions are straight out of a sci-fi movie. So buckle up, get ready for some serious what the heck moments, and let's get started. All right, guys, let's kick things off with a bang, literally. During World War II, the British Special Operations Executive came up with a plan so crazy it just might have worked, using exploding rats to sabotage German factories. I know what you're thinking. Exploding rats, did they strap tiny little dynamite sticks to them? Well, not exactly. Here's how it went down. The plan was to take dead rats, stuff them with plastic explosives and sneak them into German factories. The idea was that someone would find the dead rat, think, gross, this needs to be incinerated, and toss it into the furnace, causing a massive explosion. Now, the plan hit a snag early on. The first batch of exploding rats was intercepted by the Germans. Can you imagine being the German soldier who found a crate full of exploding rats? Talk about a bad day at the office. But here's the crazy part. Even though the Germans knew about the exploding rats, the British kept finding them. It seems like the Germans were so freaked out by the idea of exploding rats that they just kept spreading the word, which actually ended up benefiting the British. Next up, we're entering the world of sound. Weaponized sound, that is. You know how some sounds can be super annoying, like nails on a chalkboard? Well, imagine that, but amplified and designed to incapacitate enemies. These aren't your average annoying noises. We're talking about high-intensity sound waves that can cause nausea, disorientation, and even pain. Sound weapons, also known as acoustic weapons, have been around for a while, and they're not just limited to warfare. They're often used for crowd control, deterring pirates, and even protecting sensitive areas from wildlife. Remember that scene in Jurassic Park where the T-Rex's footsteps create huge vibrations? It's kind of like that, but instead of a giant dinosaur, it's a device that emits sound waves powerful enough to knock you off your feet. The science behind it is pretty fascinating. These weapons work by targeting the inner ear, which is responsible for our balance and hearing. By bombarding the inner ear with intense sound waves, they can disrupt these senses, causing a whole bunch of unpleasant effects. Okay, folks, get ready for this one because it involves pigeons. Guiding missiles. You heard me right. Back in World War II, before we had fancy GPS systems and laser-guided technology, both the Americans and the Germans were experimenting with some pretty unconventional methods of warfare, and one of those involved our feathered friends. Now, pigeons might seem like an odd choice for a military operation, but they actually have some pretty impressive navigational skills. They can find their way back to their nests from hundreds of miles away, even if they've never been to that location before. Scientists believe they use a combination of the Earth's magnetic field, the position of the sun, and even their sense of smell to navigate. So, how do you turn a pigeon into a missile guidance system? Well, it involves a lot of training, a bit of engineering, and maybe a touch of animal cruelty, which is why this method was eventually abandoned. The idea was to place pigeons inside specially designed noses of missiles, where they would peck at a target image like a ship or a building. Their pecks would then be translated into steering commands, guiding the missile towards its intended target. Hold on to your hats, folks, because this next one is truly batty. During World War II, the United States military came up with a plan so wild, so audacious, it could only be described as bat bombs. Yes, you heard me right, bats. Strapped with explosives. Now, before you dismiss this as the ramblings of a sleep-deprived engineer, let me explain. The idea behind bat bombs was to exploit the unique abilities of bats, particularly their ability to roost in large numbers in dark, secluded places. The plan was to capture thousands of Mexican free-tailed bats, which are known for their small size and ability to carry relatively heavy loads. These bats would then be fitted with tiny incendiary devices, essentially miniature firebombs, and released from aircraft over Japanese cities. The bats, naturally drawn to the dark recesses of buildings, would then fly into attics, eaves, and other hidden spaces where the timed fuses on their bombs would ignite, causing widespread fires. Okay, folks, buckle up for this one because we're about to delve into the realm of the truly bizarre, the hilariously absurd, and maybe even a little bit uncomfortable. I'm talking about the gay bomb, a weapon so outlandish that it sounds like it was dreamt up by a screenwriter for a satirical comedy. In 1994, the US Air Force, in all their infinite wisdom, proposed a non-lethal chemical weapon that would make enemy soldiers sexually irresistible to each other. The idea was to create a love potion of sorts that would turn the battlefield into a scene from a disco, with enemy combatants more interested in making love, not war. Now, I know what you're thinking. This has got to be a joke, right? Well, believe it or not, the Air Force was dead serious about this. They even went as far as requesting funding for research into aphrodisiacs and other love-inducing chemicals. All right, folks, time to talk about a weapon that's straight out of a Fallout game. The Davy Crockett nuclear rifle. That's right, you heard me correctly, a nuclear rifle. Developed during the Cold War, when the threat of nuclear annihilation loomed large, the Davy Crockett was basically a recoilless rifle, kind of like a giant bazooka, that could fire tactical nuclear warheads. Now, when I say tactical, I use the term loosely because, let's be honest, there's nothing tactical about a nuclear explosion. This thing was essentially a portable nuke launcher designed to be used against enemy troops and fortifications. It was small enough to be mounted on a jeep or even carried by a team of soldiers, making it a terrifyingly versatile weapon. Alright folks, ever played a first-person shooter game and wished you could take out enemies hiding around corners without exposing yourself to fire? Well, the Germans, in their infinite ingenuity, actually tried to make that a reality during World War II with the Krummlauf, a bizarre but strangely fascinating weapon attachment for their Sturmgewehr 44 assault rifle. The Krummlauf, which translates to curved barrel in German, was essentially a curved attachment that allowed soldiers to fire their rifles around corners or over obstacles without having to expose themselves to enemy fire. It was like having a periscope for your gun. The Krummlauf came in a few different variations, with curves ranging from 30 to 90 degrees. The idea was that soldiers could peek around corners, aim the curved barrel and fire without having to expose themselves. They even developed special periscope sights to help with aiming. Alright folks, get ready to talk about a weapon so massive, so powerful, and so terrifyingly accurate that it could shell a city from over 75 miles away. I'm talking about the Paris gun, a super heavy siege gun used by the Germans during World War I to bombard Paris, hence the name. Now, this wasn't your average artillery piece. This thing was a monster, measuring over 140 feet long and weighing over 250 tons. It was so big that it had to be transported on special rail cars and took over 100 soldiers to assemble and operate. Alright folks, ever heard the expression go big or go home? Well, the Russians took that to heart during World War I with the Tsar tank, a gargantuan armoured vehicle that was big on ambition but ultimately fell flat on its face. Literally. Now, when I say big, I mean big. This thing was an absolute behemoth, measuring over 30 feet tall and weighing over 60 tons. It was so big that it dwarfed even the largest tanks of the time, making them look like toy cars in comparison. Alright folks, get ready to talk about a weapon that's as disgusting as it is effective, the vomit gun. This non-lethal weapon takes the concept of fight or flight to a whole new level by inducing, well, let's just say, unpleasant digestive reactions in its targets. The vomit gun, also known as a puke gun or nausea weapon, isn't designed to kill or maim. Instead, it aims to incapacitate its targets by bombarding them with a combination of extremely bright flashing lights and loud disorienting noises. Imagine the most annoying rave you've ever been to. Crank up the intensity to 11 and then add a dash of motion sickness, and you're starting to get the idea. Thanks for watching, innovators. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more fascinating content. Let us know in the comments which weapon you found the most unusual. See you next time.